This is not about whether you like Uber and Lyft. What this is about is a critical question: who is going to control our city? Citizens or corporations that are looking out for their own self-interest?
It's not just about cost. There's something very fundamentally wrong with fingerprint-based background checks that would push them out of our community, and that is the effects of voting against Prop 1.
Ride-sharing regulations taking center stage tonight. The Austin Monitor and KUT held a live debate on this issue. The panel debated the pros and cons of the regulations ahead of the upcoming election. On May 7th, voters will decide if the city should require mandatory fingerprint background checks for Uber drivers.
We can all agree, ride-sharing drivers should have national criminal background checks.
This new television ad is trying to sway your vote. When you hit the road, you want the streets to be safe. Now you get to decide what kind of checks some drivers have to pass.
We are now a little more than a week away from early voting. The election is about those background checks for ride-hailing drivers like Uber and Lyft. Here are the basics. Voting yes on the proposition means standard background checks for these drivers will continue. Those do not include fingerprinting. If you vote no, these drivers will be required to go through fingerprint background checks. And Uber and Lyft have vowed to leave Austin if those checks are implemented. KXAN investigator Kevin Schwaller looked into the claims in this new ad.
We can all agree, ride-sharing drivers should have national criminal background checks.
The ad calls on voters to support the viewpoint of companies like Uber and Lyft. They want a yes vote on Prop 1. So let the battle of the background checks continue.
But on May 7th, we'll be deciding who should conduct them.
That's misleading. This ad focuses on who conducts the checks and who will pay for them, which is part of your vote, but it fails to mention the key issue both sides have focused on: fingerprint background checks.
Vote for Prop 1 requires Uber and Lyft to keep conducting criminal background checks with full oversight by the city.
That's mostly true. Uber and Lyft drivers will have to have background checks as they did before. Full oversight is an opinion.
A vote against would require the city to take over background checks.
That's also mostly true. The city could bring in a third party for part of the check, but in the end, Austin still gets the results.
And Austin taxpayers would pay.
This claim is mostly untrue. Although the city did offer to pay, like we reported, the city has not decided where the money would come from.
On May 7th, vote for tough background checks, for full city oversight, and for ride-sharing companies to pay.
Kevin Schwaller, KXAN investigates.
And background checks are not the only key issue on this ballot item. We break down the other differences with this story on our website at KXAN.com.
The May election expected to cost city taxpayers between $500,000 and $900,000. The vote will come after a petition to change the ride-sharing rules got 25,000 valid signatures. In February, Mayor Steve Adler sent out a new proposal called the Austin Innovation TNC Ordinance to avoid a May ballot. This would have offered incentives for drivers to be fingerprinted rather than making it mandatory. As we know, that proposal did not pass.
Ride Sharing Works for Austin has been campaigning for Proposition 1. The organization has brought in donations from Uber and Lyft totaling more than $2 million. That's according to a financial document filed with the city earlier this month. On the other side, the Political Action Committee, called Our City, Our Safety, Our Choice, has received nearly $12,500 against Proposition 1.
Earlier this month, Uber released its first ever transparency report. It shows the information Uber provided to U.S. law enforcement agencies and state and local regulators in the second half of last year. And during that time, Uber got 33 requests from local regulatory agencies about pickup and drop-off information. That includes information about more than 11,500,000 riders and 583,000 drivers. They complied with all the requested information in 21% of those requests.